Cheryl,
I
get back on?
just have a question.
Cheryl, get on, Jimmy.
Can I just ask a question? So the presentation comes before the reports?
It's up to you. If you want to have the presentation.
Does,
You're going to switch it. I put it before.
Jackie, I'm wondering if you want to have public comment after, since there's such a delay in between agenda.
Take it when it comes, it doesn't matter.
Then she already closes public comment.
so is the presentation under old business?
No, it's before we have it listed before.
Okay, so the report. In accordance with Section 5 of the Open Public Meeting Act, be advised that a notice of this meeting was made by posting on the bulletin board in Town Hall and forwarding to the officially designated newspapers that this meeting would take place at Town Hall at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, May 5th. Please all stand to salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Ms. Burstein?
Here.
Ms. Pruvis?
Here.
Ms. Eglo?
Here.
Mr. Wasserman?
Here,
Mayor Lieberberg?
Here.
Thank you.
May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? May I have a motion to approve the April 7th Township Committee minutes?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. We'll start out with some reports. Good evening, fellow TC members and those joining us remotely. Thank you for your attendance. Our residents with the virus now stands at 124 cases. The residents now in recovery are 62%. As you know, this information is constantly evolving, and we will continue to bring you all the numbers as we receive them. We continue to persevere as a township. Essential services are continuing, and I am so grateful that we have the infrastructure in place to continue to support our senior citizens and our most vulnerable residents with food deliveries and our well-stocked food pantry. Thank you to Deputy Mayor Prupus, Annette Romano, and Anna Milan for their commitment to our residents. Thank you also to Down the Block, Milburn Short Hills Flag, MEND, MSH Health Support, The Mask Lady, Milburn Short Hills Volunteer First Aid Squad, and our police, fire, DPW, and town hall employees, as well as the countless others who continue to work hard to serve and support our local community and neighbors. As discussed at our last meeting, we will be moving forward with our decorative upgrading of our 3 township-owned utility boxes. This will be a joint initiative with the Milburn High School Art Department and the Township Committee. The Farmers Market will open on June 2nd with social distancing protocols in place. Please stay tuned for more details in the upcoming weeks. Essex County has now set up another testing facility in Newark at the roller rink in Branch Brook Park, as well as the one at Weequahic Park. The testing criteria for COVID-19 has changed, and anyone wanting to be tested can do so. It is by appointment only. Please go to the website Essex County COVID-19 to schedule an appointment. Also, as you all know, Essex County parks are open, and they are requiring all attendees to wear a face covering in the county parks. This is mandatory. A friendly reminder to all our residents that face covering is required when picking up food, shopping in supermarkets, drugstores, and essential stores. This is the law. It is not optional. When walking, please keep social distance of 6 feet and recognize that everyone's comfort level is different. Please keep your distance. As also mentioned, the New Jersey primary has moved to July 7th. If you want to register for vote by mail, remember you must declare your party affiliation and contact the township clerk at townclerk@milburntwp.org. Friendly reminder also to fill out your census data. This essential data will be used to address infrastructure spending and requisite funding on a federal level. Your participation is greatly appreciated. Now we'll go on to the committee reports. Richard.
Thank you, Mayor. So in the middle of the pandemic and what our town has been persevering through, I just have some thank yous to throw out there in the middle of all this. I want to thank Steve Roth and the Milburn Short Hills First Aid Squad for helping the Friendship Circle. Steve with one of the rigs led a small caravan from the Friendship Circle. They visited 8 Friendship Circle children in our township. They brought some joy and candy to some of these kids on Sunday, and it was really a joy to see. And to the First Aid Squad, I really say thank you for doing that. Also, more thanks this time to the Board of Ed for coming through and maintaining the pedestrian bridge. It was really, it's kind of looked very rusted, and I thought it could look a little better. I approached them in December, this past December, and sure enough, they budgeted the money, and they have technicians working on it. It's also a wonderful entryway to the township, and I'm just thrilled that that pedestrian bridge will look better and be in good shape, especially for the kids when they return to school. Also, I want to let everybody know that the Finance Committee met this past week. I was there with Committeewoman Eglo. We carefully reviewed the financial standing of the town. I'm very happy to say that we're in very good standing right now, and we're going to do everything we can to make sure that we do all the right things.
Thank you. Committeewoman Burstein, would you like to report next?
I don't have a report.
Thank you. Tara?
I have no reports.
Diane Edlow?
Thank you. Just to piggyback on what Richard said, we are in very good shape, and the only issue right now is that there is no revenue coming in from the meters, which is a very big hit, $20,000 a month. So the only thing we were discussing is how to move on with the debt note. The deck has about $3.5 million more dollars. So do we reissue that note, or do we go out for a bond? So that's something that we are working on with Alex and Jason, our CFO. The other thing is, I'd like to say, I wrote a letter, and Cheryl, I know you saw this, I wrote a letter to the Milburn's library director. I'd like to share that. It was entitled, Reading is Fundamental and Essential. And my letter to Mike was, there are many residents and children who may need or prefer an actual book. There are many reasons, from disabilities, vision impairment, to not having the ability to download a book. It seems that having to purchase a book from Amazon should not be the only option when we have a library with thousands of books. Many times when I was checking out a book, I would see parents take out a huge stack of children's books. The children's were always so exciting. Nothing replaces that to encourage a future reader. These days, when everyone is sheltered at home, a stack of books may be a lifesaver to engage children and people of all ages. I hear from my friends and see news clips how people are spending up to 10 hours a day on their devices. Parents complain their kids are getting way too much screen time. I would encourage the board, obviously it has to be approved by the governor, to revisit its decision how to reopen or utilize the library. Things may start to reopen soon on a limited basis, or they may not. I believe that we have a library staff, other solutions and ideas should be considered. As I mentioned in my previous email to Mike, the director, Town Hall has been working successfully on weekly split shifts. Would it be possible at the library for curbside pickup, trunk drop-off, And we do have the return book box. So I just think we could be a little more creative if we could find out from the governor exactly what the mandate was. Was it to completely shutter libraries? Like, what can we do to have access to those books? We're seeing all over the news, there's virtual book clubs, people are buying books from Amazon, and I just think that we could look for a creative solution, and I'm hoping we can. And I know, Cheryl, you and Mike shared the letter with all the library board members. So, thank you.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes, I just have a few brief reports. One is today, the township participated in a reverse auction process for our electricity load for all municipal buildings. It resulted in three different auctions. The first was a bridge contract for 6 months that would bring in some new accounts and also some accounts that were not a part of our last auction. That will last for 6 months. It was also an auction for our main load, which is a 2-year contract starting in December, and also an auction for our street lighting accounts. And that also is for a 24-month period. This is where the township goes out and has third-party suppliers bid its electrical commodity component. Obviously, all of our distribution and all of that is still done by JCP&L. And so the result of these auctions were favorable to the township in that the lighting auction over the 2-year period would show a savings of about $18,487. The main load auction for 24 months would show a savings of about $47,643. Again, that's over a 24-month period. That auction also includes a 25% green component to that electricity commodity. And the bridge auction was approximately a savings of about $4,000 for the 6 months to get us to December, where we already sold that main load of the township's electricity supply. On Thursday the 7th of this week, we're going to have a pre-construction meeting with our contractor for Old Short Hills Road in the mill and pave of that stretch from Parsonage Hill to Main Street. The hope is, and again, this contractor unfortunately had its own difficulties with everything that's been going on, but the hope is that we will start the mill and pave process on May 11th, and that with the closure of schools for in-person learning for the remainder of the year, that we will be able to do this work during the day where it was originally scheduled for a nighttime work. But all of that will be discussed in the advantages and disadvantages of that on the 7th. But certainly good to get that going. The Short Hills train station roof is complete. Looks great. The contractor did a fantastic job, and we are just finalizing that project in terms of bills and things like that. The last thing is on the agenda tonight under the consent agenda. You'll see also a resolution for the crosswalk at Holmes and Essex. Just I want to give a little bit of an explanation on this. I've reached out to the county about the possibility of grinding out and this is a result of a Pedestrian Safety Advisory Board recommendation. The westerly crosswalk at the intersection of Essex and Holmes, the one closest to Lackawanna, and having that ground out by the county so that the cars from Holmes that are turning left on the one-way street of Essex are not turning into the crosswalk. Similar situation we have a lot of places in the downtown of Milburn. They've asked for a resolution that the committee is committed to that. That's why it's on your agenda. But that's a recommendation of the PSAB group, which is a good one, I think. Just wanted to give some context to that.
Great. Thank you. Mr. Falcon, would you like to weigh in, please?
Yes, thank you. I have just a few items. Firstly, I wanted to point out that, we had been trying to work on a protocol for the holding of land use board meetings. That's now in the process of being implemented by Eileen Davitt and by the boards. And for that matter, the planning board is going to hold a practice session where the members go on Zoom to make sure that everybody knows how to enter that facility, and that's a prelude to actually holding a hearing using the new methodology. That's moved along nicely. We have commenced the process for the acquisition of the easements for the traffic control facilities at Hobart, as authorized by your adoption of the ordinances recently. And thirdly, we've made good progress on the development of a revised special improvement district ordinance. We had some comments from Alex, which we have incorporated into the draft. We've also decided that since we're making so many substantial changes to the 1992 ordinance, that we're going to recommend to you that you adopt the ordinance in its entirety as a revision of the old ordinance. And we're going to set it up in a text for you, hopefully for your discussion of new business on the 19th, where you'll be able to, we have the changes underlined and an explanation will be made as to why the changes were made. So that's coming along nicely. That's the end of my report.
Thank you very much.
Can I, I'm just gonna piggyback on a
Yes,
few things
by all means.
Mr. Falcon said. One is that the planning board process is well underway to be ready to go for the May 20th meeting. The zoning board is taking a sort of slower approach at this point. There are applications before the planning board that will be heard, but we're going to continue to work on that as we continue to be in this situation, and bring the planning board in under the same avenue or the zoning board in under the same avenue as the planning board. And to the point of the easements, I have been in contact with Essex County as well, and they're aware of our status, our situation in terms of that, and they're ready to go when we are. So we continue to work and push toward that.
Great. Thank you.
Can I just add that it made me think the Environmental Commission is meeting, we're having our first virtual meeting next Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. So I'll
Great.
be able to report on that meeting, but we are going to do
A Zoom?
virtual.
Is it Zoom?
Yes.
Yeah, great.
Yes.
Okay. Presentation. Taylor Park Strategic Plan. Our administrative analyst, Jesse Molman, will now proceed. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. So tonight, I'm going to present to you the completion of a year-long effort to put together a strategic plan to make improvements to Taylor Park. So one of the reasons this all started is internally there were a couple discussions amongst some department heads about ideas for the park and how it could be improved, and I think there was a sense that we kind of took it for granted that it's this 15-acre park in the heart of our downtown that is kind of unique and that it's very accessible for people. It's got a nice landscape, but there really hasn't been a lot of upgrades to it in the last couple decades, and so we wanted to brainstorm internally amongst the engineering, recreation, public works, and administration departments to come up with some ideas, as well as canvass the public. And so we use a SOAR framework for strategic planning, which stands for Strengths, Opportunities, Aspirations, and Results. And we interviewed 70 members of the public. It included a variety of residents, those people who, varying age groups, ethnicities, those who have families and those who don't, business owners, people from various religious institutions, and tried to get as wide of a wide of a group of people as possible. Next page. And so what everyone kind of touched on in their responses was that it's a passive and active space. It promotes gathering, and it's directly tied to the other assets in the downtown, whether it's the business districts, the paper mill. It really is a force multiplier for the town, and it draws people in, and it's very much a part of what makes downtown Milburn what it is. And it's changed over time. So if you look at the picture to the left, which the Historical Society graciously sent to me, the first pool in town was not at Giroux Park. It was actually in the Taylor Pond. People used to jump off the bridge where Taylor Street intersects, and they used to fish there. Sometimes you'll still see people doing that today, but that was where people swam. And the article to the right from 1935 discusses a concert during the summer and includes a passage about a, quote, chorus of mosquitoes. So some things haven't changed, and some things have changed a lot. In the strengths portion of the interviews, people expressed a desire for more special events, things like Rocktoberfest, Summer Concert Series, and Winter Walk. People really appreciated how that brought members of the community together, and it was a nice way to just bring people together. Nice weather, cold weather, didn't matter. It's proximity to the downtown, so it is a park where there's not really parking in the park, but there are municipal lots adjacent to it, and you can go and get lunch, eat in the park, kind of extend it to whatever you're doing throughout the day, and it complements the small town feel. So in some respects, having a small park can be limiting because it's not nearly as big as, say, Verona Park, but it kind of fits the size of the downtown. And this time of year, we all appreciate the cherry blossoms in bloom, the rain garden on the north side of the park, that it really is a nice landscape this time of year. And opportunities for the future. So people talked about the desire for more special events and different types of programming. People suggested sponsoring movie nights in the park, yoga in the park. What's interesting is that if you walk by the park today in the world we're living in, it's very full for passive uses. But these are things that might be possible in a socially distant environment because of the space it affords. Programming for teens was an interesting one. So one woman who I spoke with brought her middle school age daughter and talked about how she would love more programming for teens in the park, but she didn't want, say, an adult to plan their activities for them, that she felt that some of the students were capable enough and with enough ideas to propose their own ideas and different programming concepts. So that's something that I think is worth exploring, is how the rec department could empower teens, whether it's in the middle school or high school, to plan their own programs in the park. The Bauer Center, which hasn't been upgraded in a few decades, definitely a few days, and accessibility. So parking being difficult just because there's really no parking in the park, and a lack of a public restroom during all hours of the park. Aspirations for the future. So residents definitely wanted some sort of upgrade to the Bauer Center. There was a desire to improve the walking paths, which are worn in some areas. Taylor Pond, which has not been dredged in quite some time. Playground, looking at equipment upgrades. And that didn't make it into one of the proposals, but when we came back and spoke with the rec department, they're on a set schedule for replacing equipment, and so that's something where they can look at different types of equipment when the existing equipment is up for renewal. And again, new programming ideas. And the last thing that we asked in the interviews were, what they wanted the park to feel like in the future, what they wanted the end product to look like. Repairs to the bridges, increasing the visibility of room rental information and facility information. So some respondents didn't know that you could rent space in the Bauer Center. So we brought that back to the rec department. We're going to make that information a little bit more accessible on the website. Programming. So when people mentioned ideas about yoga in the park and different recreation ideas, the recreation department started brainstorming about different concepts for that. And I think, whether it's in the short or medium term, opening up to allowing people from the community to sponsor different types of events, whether it's a movie night or something like that in the park. Installing a water refill station. So this is something that would be a relatively small capital expense, but kind of just, it's something where it's environmentally friendly, can be easily attached to the side of the building, and a trash rack in the pond to make cleanup a little bit easier for public works. The medium-term proposals. So a big one was adding a public restroom that's accessible all the time. This was a big one for families with small children near the playground and people using the basketball courts. There is a porta potty right now, but it's kind of, at its limit. And so the township explored renovating the old pump house on the west side of the park near the playground, which was going to be a major capital expense. However, we're looking at creating a barrier between the restroom in the Bauer Center, which is towards the end of the building, and putting an automatic shut-off door so that whether the building is open to the public or not, the restroom would be open during park hours. And so that we would at least have restrooms for the public at any time that the park is open. Repaving the paths, dredging the pond, and reestablishing the low wall around the pond. So if you look at old pictures of Taylor Pond, there actually used to be a barrier that separated the path, and as you can see, it's been eroded over the years. So we're working with the Department of Environmental Protection in New Jersey to come up with a plan for both of those items. The Public Works shed, which is near the tennis wall and the basketball court, is very dilapidated, and the administration and Public Works departments are looking at different proposals for that, whether the equipment could be moved out of that space or if a new shed needs to be built. And the backstop fencing and outfield barrier for the baseball diamond. So right now there's really no sense of where the baseball diamond ends and where the rest of the park begins. And so for safety reasons and also for just creating a better delineation, adding some sort of barrier around that field and upgrading those the infrastructure around the baseball field. Lighting is a big one. So especially in the fall and early spring, if you're walking back from the train and you want to cut through the park, it's pitch black around like 5:30, 6 o'clock. So I would suggest that if the Township Committee is interested in adding lights to the park, that we've gotten initial cost estimates that it would be in the range of around $150,000, but having a lighting expert come in and take a look and see what kind of fixtures would be most appropriate, the quantity that people do lighting studies, and so when you approach a company, they'll send someone and give you different proposals. And so if that's something that the committee wants to move on, there are a couple avenues with that. And wayfinding. So having signs at the entrances to the park that tells you the rules and regulations and what's in the park and where things are located and things like that, just to kind of give you a sense that you're entering the park, which we don't really have right now. And lastly, some big ticket long-term items. So there were a number of people in the interviews that suggested creating a permanent performance space. So people really like the summer concert series. And right now we bring out the band shell for that, but we don't have something permanent, and that would be a large capital expense, but it might be something worth looking into in the future. the Bauer Center. So the recreation department has a number of ideas to turn the main room into a more usable space for special events and for recreation activities, like adding basketball hoops, replacing the tiles with flooring. But it's a space that really hasn't been renovated in a couple decades. The teen room is probably one of the last things to be looked at, but it doesn't get a lot of use, and so whether that's something that's turned into more of a, an adult space as well, that's maybe open more times out of the year, or just an big overhaul, rethink of the space, that's something that can be looked at long term. Nature. So in the interviews, one of the people I spoke with was the director of the co-op nursery in the park, and she told me that she brings out her students every day, rain or shine, to walk through the park. And so highlighting the different natural elements in the park, and maybe labeling tree species, having a placard near the rain garden, things like that. They kind of just give you a sense that you're in this landscape as opposed to just being in a downtown area. And public art. So that's something where art can bring people together. It's a place-making device and adds character to the park, and so that's definitely something that can be looked at in a number of different respects. And so it's hard to see on the presentation right now, but in the plans you have are the cost estimates for the items that we were able to price out, and others that are a little bit more complicated, just depending on how the committee wants to move forward with it. There are some items that are that can be taken care of either at no cost or out of an operating budget. So for example, just trying to think, like wayfinding, for example, would be a relatively small expense for signage that doesn't require a capital expense. But something like lighting and redoing the paths would. And the paths are hard to calculate right now, just to figure out how many linear feet of pavement would be necessary, and whether the width would stay the same or increase at all. And that's partly dependent on what the New Jersey DEP comes back with. Excellent. And the hope is that this plan is looked at least internally after 1 year, 3 years, maybe 5 years, to see whether we're hitting whatever short, medium, long-term goals were set aside, and whether the needs and desires of the community have changed. So there could be things that the township isn't pursuing today but might be interested in later on, and it's kind of just a starting point for a conversation, and overall, seeing where everyone's minds were at this point in time. The township has applied for a grant from Essex County to help pay for bridge repairs, improvements to the infrastructure around the baseball field in the park, as well as irrigating the green spaces. For the township committee, the medium and long-term projects are probably what most warrants a bigger discussion, whether those are capital projects that there's an appetite for and worth considering, or things that should be put off. Definitely things like the Bauer Center and lighting would be a longer discussion. When it comes to redoing the paths and dredging for the pond, those are things that the engineering department is already having discussions with DEP. But once those cost estimates come back, those would probably be capital expenses. And I thank Arlene Pomerantz, resident in town, who took some of those beautiful photos, and Lynn Ranieri and the Historical Society for sending me their historical information. And if anyone has any questions.
Great.
First of all, thank you. This was a huge undertaking, really working on this for a year. It was amazing. The only thing you didn't touch on was the entrance from Milburn Avenue, which I've been talking about with Alex and you a long time. It's just not open, it's not inviting. I don't think a lot of people that are not from town even realize you can walk past it's that beautiful ash tree, but everything else to the left and right of it is not inviting, it's not beautiful, and that really is the way where people should, like, when they took away the low hedges on Main Street, and all of a sudden it's like, wow, there's a huge park there. You can see the pond. I really think this should be part of our plan, like open up, and that does not even require hurting the pagoda or hurting the rose garden, which may or may not change one day, but just opening up the park to Milburn Avenue. And I think that someone had once talked about making kind of like a stepping, and you put those lights on it, you know, like the, seen that? Like there's the concrete steps and there's lights underneath one. They could be flashing, they could be different colors, but I think that would be a really inviting way to come into Milburn.
That's a good point. And I remember we spoke with Tom Doty a couple
Yes.
months ago about cutting back some of the shrubs in that space, but
And
to,
sorry to interrupt.
No, it's all right.
But and he has, they have cut back some. Obviously, there's probably a lot more visioning and work to do over there to see not only what the entrance looks like, but even the front of that on Milburn Avenue, where you have a lot of brick that is being kicked up and in disrepair, as well as I think that certainly, and this is part of another discussion, but wayfinding in the downtown also helps you find the park too. You know, it's sort of to your point, being able to drive by and see, but also being able to walk in downtown and know where it's at. And wayfinding doesn't necessarily need to take the shape of a big, huge sign that says Taylor Park this way. You know, it could be something as whimsical as, you know, putting leaves on the ground and following the leaves to Taylor Park or something like that. But certainly all things to consider.
Because you know, on Main Street where you have the picnic benches are kind of set in place, and that's really beautifully landscaped. Even something like that on Milburn Avenue. So if you buy your deli sandwich, your pizza, there's a whole nother inviting area to sit besides the benches that you're sitting under the trees with spiders and things. Yeah.
So I think the wayfinding, it could be a larger discussion about just entrances to the park in
Right.
general.
And make that whole area more inviting.
Oh.
I just had a question. With respect to wayfinding, are there grants available? Is that part of I'm just asking, are there? Or
Not
is it-
really. It's
or
more
just-
it's more about signage than anything else. So if there's a grant available for green, for public spaces and stuff in terms of communication, it might be applicable, but not really for transportation.
Okay.
And I just wanted to commend you, because I know you're working on this for a year. We had a long conversation about the park. I think I kind of bored you into some of my ideas, but I just think you did a great job with this. This was really a very big undertaking, and I think it came out like amazing. I'd like to do everything, because I love all the recommendations. I like the lighting. Did we ever have any discussions with the schools, like to try to, do you think any of our kids would be interested in using, the Bauer Center as a, in any of their activities? I've always felt that the Bauer Center is always underutilized. It always brings me joy that whenever there's something going on there, like, oh, we can use it. But I wonder if we were to put some effort into it, whether we could, have more groups, whether the schools or any of our, associations or groups, that would want to kind of, use it or adopt the Bauer Center more, just so we use it.
Yeah, so I was limited in that, at least in terms of talking with people, that I didn't want to interview anyone under the age of 18 without their parental consent. And so there were 2 high schoolers I was able to speak to, one who was 18 and one who got permission from their parent. And also the middle schooler who was there with her mother, who I didn't know she was going to bring her along as well, which is a nice benefit. But I think that's definitely something that should be explored, whether it's run through the recreation department or through the schools with permission from the recreation department and involvement from the students. After talking with Chris Myers in rec, there used to be a more active teen program, and he said that after a while, participation kind of dropped. Kids weren't interested in coming, either playing games in the teen room or whatever programs were offered, it wasn't as interesting to them as like, just hanging out with their friends, and today's schedules for kids being so tied up with other things that it was a little difficult. But what's interesting now is like you walk around in the afternoon, and because of where everyone's lives are at, the park is full with people.
Yeah.
And I think it begs a discussion in terms of like whether we're in this environment for a significant stretch or not, how people think about spending their time in these public spaces, and whether there might be more of an appetite for that. So I definitely think that's something that we should explore.
And I wonder whether in our revisioning efforts, we should look at what Diane was talking about, the front of Taylor Park, in terms of our revisioning. Taylor Park is such an essential part of the township, and it's one of my favorite parts of the township. Maybe to try to open it up and to make that a centerpiece, of redevelopment or revisioning.
That's what I was thinking, back to the library. How in the afternoons the library is just overrun with kids? And I don't know if they're getting tutored, it's time, space for their parents. I wonder if the Bauer Center could maybe set up some computer rows, computer stations, and maybe some of the overflow could go to Bauer Center, and it could be, maybe the kids could meet their tutor there. They could still walk there. I don't know, maybe that would be a use to get people there.
Yeah. I remember I interviewed the library director, and he said they've tried everything to reduce the noise level in the
Right, so
library.
send them to the Bauer Center.
Yeah.
That's an interesting thought.
Yeah.
Can we talk about the bathrooms? Because making the bathrooms public right now, like, it seems like that's not that big of an expense for $4,000 to put. You would put a wall so that, or something to prevent people from getting into the Bauer Center, but just the bathrooms would remain open. I think that is something that we should consider maybe approving tonight, if possible, to get that done.
Would they be open 24/7? No, because then we have no lighting, and then
It would be,
safety.
The hours of the park are till 10 p.m.
Okay, so how would that work? It's a great idea.
So it would be an
Who would
automatic
do it?
shut. Sorry, what?
Who would do the construction? Is that your Is that your question?
Yes, would it be would it be township employees?
I think that we would explore that first and foremost, and whether that was a possibility. You want to make sure it's in their wheelhouse, and if they can perform that, then yeah.
The reason I'm asking is because of the number you're talking about. I think it would almost have to be done in-house to have that kind of a dollar figure.
Is that the assumption, Jesse?
Yeah, I think so. That was a number I think Bob from Rec had gotten us. I could double check with him and see if he had touched base with Jim DeStano, the superintendent of public works, and to see
Jesse,
if that's.
I can't hear you.
I'll check with the recreation and public works directors to see if that's something that they can take care of immediately, and at least on the public works side, that they have the capability to do so.
And what would it look like? So, in terms of, like you said, locking, or how would that be managed?
So the restrooms are on the south side of the building, and it's basically the only things at that side of the building are the restrooms, and then there's a little bit of a passageway to the other rooms. So you could add an automatic shut-off door that separates where the bathrooms are from the rest of the hallway. And that way, if the building is closed to the public, because right now it's only open if there are programs going on, you could keep the other door open facing out, and then close off the rest so that you wouldn't be able to get into the
But
property.
the bathroom would lock at 10 o'clock too, like somehow it would be
Yes.
timed so that it would be open only during park hours.
Yeah, you could put a camera in the hallway and just make sure from a safety
have a camera,
standpoint that,
right.
that it's safe, and make sure that the door is automatically shut at 10 o'clock and open at whatever time in the morning.
Right. I think one of the added factors to that is that you are going to have some security there just to make sure, because certainly the doors would lock at 10 o'clock. People would be able to exit for some reason, caught in there.
Right.
However, you can also have the scenario where it can be propped open and people could congregate in there. So you'd have to have some security feature to it as well. But
So does Verona Park or other parks have this, and do you know if there's any been liability issues?
It's a good question. I have to look into it.
Okay.
And we also want to make sure there's enough lighting, just from a danger point of view, want to make sure that it's well lit, because even in the early evening, we want to make sure that people, feel safe using it.
And it's also handicap compliant. You have those ramps there, I believe, so that's,
One of the bigger items of of Jesse's sort of exploration in all this too is the lighting of the park, because the hours are what they are. However, what's provided in terms of light in that park is not
limited.
It's correct from various sources.
Are the tennis courts lit? Can people play at night?
Yes.
So then there should be the bathroom if they're playing at night. So it's like on a timer?
Correct. Yep.
And we have lights at the basketball court, but we don't really use them right now, and that's something that
Correct.
we could start doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's great ideas in here. Really terrific.
I think that would be a great idea to maybe move forward with, is really exploring this bathroom initiative, if you will.
And what about the signage? I mean, signage
And
also.
signage.
Signage also, you said, is very inexpensive.
Yep. So I kind of
Can you
put
write it?
wayfinding towards the end, because you don't want to put in signs now with what's there and say we add something and you have to go back and order new signs. But we could figure out something, at least in the short term, for the restrooms to let people know where they are and
That's a good idea.
plan that out.
And when do you anticipate hearing back from the DEP? Do you have any time frame?
That's a long process.
And longer now.
Much longer now.
Okay, so all that stuff is on COVID hold?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
But the conversation has started. I think we were a little surprised with the amount of people that they sent when they had taken a look and met with Christine Buell from the engineering department. But but she said that it was helpful that they started it, and that they'll send their feedback on some of these items once they have time to look through it fully.
And when did they go there? Was it before
I want to
this?
say it was like
Before the
February.
pan-
Yeah, it was before
Yeah.
this. It was as a result of another project, but they used the opportunity to ask these questions as well.
So I think when I was on the environmental commission, it was somebody had brought up, oh, we're not moving enough, brought up putting some kind of blockage right from the deli after that to collect some of that debris. Is that what was in this plan? I think it was
So
Vic who brought
the-
it up. Like you could put, no, it was the other guy, I can't remember, Joe Barbanel.
The rain guard?
No, something like where the water comes down from the creek past the deli, and it kind of goes down a little waterfall. There could be something like a netting to catch some of the debris, so it wouldn't, or maybe moss, I can't really remember, that would be floating down into the park, into the pond. Kind of for a little protection. I'll have to-
Yeah, I'll have to look
Yeah.
into it.
Can we do like a water station? Put that.
Well, that's on the list here too.
No,
Yeah.
no, I know. I'm
in
saying to like
conjunction,
us.
yeah.
Can we like give from like
How much is
the
the water
go
system?
ahead to like get a
$1,000.
water station?
Yeah, they should have that.
There.
Depends on if there's access to a water line from the outside. So I'd have to check with Public Works and see.
Jennifer
Well,
Duckworth.
wouldn't that,
Like if there's plumbing there, then yes.
or couldn't a water line go into
Put it by the
into the
bathroom.
hallway by the bathrooms, and that would shut off it, that would be, the water would be accessible from 8 AM to 10 PM and not after that?
So the question is whether it would be outside or inside, I guess, because more people would probably use it outside.
Right.
Wait, isn't
But-
there a water
No, we
fountain
want
outside
it.
Taylor, by the
Outside.
tennis court, there's a water fountain.
Well, we're talking
Yeah,
about
we're talking
refilling.
water refill station.
Can't you just
Yeah.
flip that into a water
I
station?
would, yeah, I would imagine that.
That might-
But I think sort of getting a sense from you.
What to look at,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. All I was suggesting is if you could tie it into the bathroom, whatever is the easiest way
But
to.
it should be on the outside.
And I
Yeah.
don't know how easy it would be to put water lines on a timing system. I mean, electricity is one thing, but
Yeah.
I'm not sure in terms of water. But I mean, we can certainly look into it.
If someone sneaks in
Yeah.
at 11 o'clock to get water, we'll let it slide.
It would be great though if rec camp ever opens, then all the kids would be able to refill their water bottles.
Right.
Right.
And that's another topic,
So
camp.
right now, is the rec department working on making booking the rooms online?
It was something that we discussed a couple months ago. I can check with them and see between them and with our public information officer.
Right,
making
and
sure that
obviously,
that's-
no one's booking a room right
Yeah.
now, but
So-
just to start if we all wanted that to happen, then to, start working to make that.
So I think that is a lot easier and closer than, perhaps, so the idea with that is that, the rec department revamped sort of their, permitting process and how they rent out not only the outdoor space, for gathering, but also the indoor space. The township's website, currently has the capability, however, we haven't utilized it, so it's really just about,
Saying
applying the tools
go.
that we have, and so it should be
Okay.
fairly simple.
Got it.
Does anybody have any other questions that they'd like to add? Okay, you have your marching orders.
Cool.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
thank
Jesse.
you
Great
very,
job.
very much.
Did anybody make comments? I can't read that.
No, public comment.
I don't think I've said anything yet.
No, I meant if anyone had typed it.
Due to the
Jesse's.
COVID-19 pandemic, Milburn Town Hall will be closed for this public meeting. Directions to access our live stream meeting through YouTube and the option to have accommodations for those who do not have internet access has been properly noticed. There will be an opportunity to comment during the announced public comment period. You must be registered with YouTube in order to comment during the announced public comment period, which is a free service. Please state your name and address so your submitted comment may be properly read into the record. If you have questions, please feel free to contact Milburn Town Hall, 973-564-7000. All committee and department contact information is also available on the Milburn Township website, www.twp.milburn.nj.us. I will now open the public comment period. Mr. Homsey?
Yeah, Mayor, we have about 22 people watching the meeting. I opened it up on our chat feature, just so they could see it immediately as
Great.
we kind of spoke to it. And we did receive one comment, so I'll read this while the rest, if any people submit their comment. That was submitted earlier today or this week.
Thank
I'll
you.
read it into the record. This is from resident William Whalen, who lives at 48 Woodcrest Ave. Dear Milburn Township Committee and residents, gas leaf blower regulation is necessary. They are extremely loud, polluting, and dangerous. I shared through Nextdoor and Facebook. We have educated ourselves on the topic and transparently provided the research gathered in the petition to residents and the township. It has received significant support in those forums, in addition to gaining 116 supporters of this as of this writing, and supports a link to where the petition can be found. Due to COVID-19, this situation has become even more serious. This month, Harvard researchers published that gas leaf blowers can increase complications and death from COVID-19. Additionally, gas leaf blowers have a lengthy list of negative effects which impact the quiet majority, as said by the New York Times, of residents that choose to attend their landscaping more considerately. Some research summary. COVID-19 and gas-powered leaf blowers, a lethal combination. This memorandum discusses 3 specific problems that gas-powered leaf blowers present during COVID-19 crisis, including 1, an increased risk of complications and death from COVID-19 due to the fine particulate matter generated by gas leaf blowers. Number 2, the sleep, concentration, and other health problems caused by the noise generated by gas leaf blowers, which is interfering with the ability of adults and children who are trying to work, learn, and rest at home. And 3, the disproportionate risks of COVID-19 related illness that landscape workers face as a result of working with gas-powered leaf blowers. The authors reviewed the existing literature on health and environmental problems associated with gas leaf blowers and recommend a moratorium on the use of gas leaf blowers and possibly electric or battery blowers too during the pandemic, as well as a longer-term plan that includes a phase-out of gas leaf blowers and help to transition the landscape industry to cleaner, quieter, and healthier alternatives. We look forward to moving this legislation forward as soon as possible.
Thank you.
And up until now, no one has on the chat submitted a comment.
Okay, why don't we just give it a few more minutes?
Jesse, while we're waiting, how many pictures did Arlene send you to pick from? Because she has an amazing amount of pictures of the town.
So I had asked her a while back for some of her photos, and she sent me like a whole trove of them.
I wonder if we should make like a Milburn calendar. Sell it.
She's got great photos.
I know, she has amazing photographs.
Really nice.
I know.
No comments.
I will now close the public comment period. The committee will now consider consent agenda resolutions. Are there any comments from the committee in regard to the items listed on the consent agenda?
Yes, I have one. Alex, you cleared up a lot on 20-114. I just want to comment that crosswalk was put back on the west side. And I think the reason it was put back, I had asked, is because you said, not you. I was told, well, people are crossing there anyway. Let's give them a crosswalk. So if we make this a resolution, does that mean once they take it out, they cannot put it back on that side, on that location?
Correct. And I think that's probably some of the rationale behind them asking for the resolution. Because when I reached out to them and they asked for the resolution, I was kind of taken aback. I didn't think that would be the mechanism for doing it. And that's probably the rationale for doing that, so they know when they look to relocate Essex Street that is no longer a crosswalk.
Okay, then I'm wondering if also they would consider looking at the crosswalk that they also put back at Undercliff Road, which is a crosswalk in the middle of 4 lanes that never should have been put back, in my non-professional opinion, because that also encourages people to cross and at 4 lanes. So maybe that's something PSAP would look at.
Yeah, we can look at it
Okay.
in July,
Thank
at
you.
our next meeting.
July. Oh my
We
God.
go quarterly.
I don't even know what month it is, yeah. Anyway, that's something that, because they had put that back after they mill and paved Milburn Avenue, and I thought, okay, well, that's good, that's gone.
Right.
And then one day it appeared again.
Sure.
Yeah, okay, thank you, that's it.
Any other comments from the committee with respect to the consent agenda items? May I have a motion to approve Resolution 20-108 through Resolution 20-115, which are listed on the consent agenda items?
Motion.
May I have a second?
Second,
Roll- Roll call, please.
Ms. Burstein?
Yes.
Ms. Prufus?
Yes.
Ms. Law Edlow?
yes.
Mr. Wasserman?
Yes.
Mayor Lieberberg?
Yes.
Thank you.
Does any committee member have an item of old business to address? Does any committee member have an item of new business to address? May I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
This meeting is adjourned.